Hi everyone and welcome to another series. I think this is number 11 of One Wave. I don't think that one's taken, as I said in my previous podcast, not sure. But with us today we have Chelsea Morgan, another local identity from Collective Therapy. I haven't known Chelsea for a long time. I've met her a couple of times. There's a lot that there's every time I talk to her, actually, which is now the third time, there's more. So there seems to be no end to this lady. So the reason I've invited her here is because she has a therapy. That's another alternative therapy, another way of finding yourself and possibly healing yourself. So maybe, shall we start there, or shall we start with the beginning of what you've just told me this morning about actually being an arts and a teacher?
Yeah, well, I guess the journey kind of relates to my business as well and why it's holistic. So I can start with my journey. My first qualification that I did was a drama and art teacher, high school, and loved it. I loved working with kids and teens and everything that comes up. I think we've all got an inner teenager, that inner rebel. And so I love dealing with that. And then it got to a point where I'm just a bit of a system rebel myself. That must be my inner teenager. And so I just wanted to help the teens beyond what the system could provide. And so I realised and recognised that actually what I loved about teaching arts was the emotional part of it and how it opened people up, kids up.
That's great. To take them, because there's so much that we hold within, isn't there? Like there's a lot of stuff that we hold, and some of it we're not aware of. So.
And, I'd have traumatized kids, and the only time they would actually express feelings of maybe not enough or I'm unlovable or whatever would be in their art. And I'd see all this stuff that was so revealing, and I'd just have to refer to the psych at the school who they didn't feel comfortable with. No. And I felt helpless. And so I thought, right, what I love about teaching arts is the emotional side. So then I went on to do my counselling degree, and within that time I've done a lot. It's true.
This is beautiful.
I was a bit hyperactive.
We're interested, so keep going.
I was very hyperactive, I think, as a adolescent. But I went to India 4 times, and within that time I learned a lot of healing modalities, crystal healing, sound, massage, to name a few, and Ayurvedic stuff. And so this is why my business, the Collective Therapy, is collective. And then after I did my healing and my counselling degree, I then went and did my hypnotherapy, clinical hypnotherapy course. And so I've been a counsellor for 15 years and a hypnotherapist for 5. And that was my journey. And I did hypnotherapy because I recognised that talking about the problem doesn't always fix the problem, because it can reside in your subconscious mind or your body.
There's also that talking is a separate thing from feeling, and our limbic brain holds the emotions, doesn't it? So.
Yes. Totally, absolutely. And when we talk, we're in that logical frontal chatty mind, prefrontal cortex. We're not in the part of the brain where the trauma of the emotion resides. And so some clients, with couples, for example, some clients want those tangible tools and techniques. I've got a lot of couples at the moment that just want communication stuff, which is great for counselling. But then other clients, it's a trauma-based thing or a childhood message that's stuck and looping in their brain, so they need hypnotherapy. Or someone wants body work because they want some healing and massage and stuff like that. So that's why it's the Collective Therapy, because
that's great.
Lots of things going on.
And I guess, just thinking of the word trauma, when I first heard the word trauma quite a few years ago, I thought it was horrible things that happened to you, but sometimes it's not what's happened to you, it's sometimes what didn't happen to you.
So true.
When you didn't get the support, when you didn't get the love. So it's not just, being abused, which is, most people will actually take it that way.
Totally, 100%. I always say that to my clients, that one of the biggest things is once the kettle's boiled, the kettle's boiled. I say that all the time. And whether your trauma is something like abuse, let's say, or whether it's, you're 5 years old and your little girlfriend breaks up with you, it doesn't matter. Once the kettle's boiled, the emotional kettle, it's boiled, we've got to look at it. And, there's a brilliant trauma therapist called Gabor Mate who talks about what hasn't happened to you and things like that. And he also says that trauma isn't about the event itself and what's happened to you. It's what's happened inside of you.
That's right. It's a feeling.
It's a feeling. And so, it doesn't matter about the event. I couldn't care less. In fact, I hardly talk about the event itself. Yeah. It's more about what message did you take away about yourself, and what interpretation did you take about the world and the people around you, and how's that playing out in your present? Because that's trauma. It's something that's happened to you in your past that you're looping in the present.
Yes, right. And sometimes you're not even aware of what you're holding on to. And they say that when you go through a trauma on a continual basis, more of a complex trauma, that you actually store things, like you actually, when something happens, you actually take everything in with your left hemisphere, and the feeling gets stored in your right hemisphere. And then the corpus callosum, which is the part that runs in the middle of the brain, communicates and puts it all together. Now, according to Ian McGilchrist, who's a scientist on the neuroscientist and a psychiatrist, he's done the whole thing. He's an amazing guy to listen to. He talks about this shortening or actually, becoming more narrow. And I'm thinking, are we going to just have this one brain? I mean, he's actually very concerned that we're becoming too left hemisphered, which is logic. I want it now. It's everything like that. It's like, I want to get this fixed now. I haven't got time. I want it now. And also the right hemisphere is the one that says, well, what about this and what about that? It's more creative. You know that.
Yeah, for sure. I think this need for instant communication or...
It's a fix, isn't it?
Is, unfortunately, technology and how we can, in 1 second, we can contact someone via a text message, and our brains are changing over time because of phones, and it's inevitable. And some days we can get so, frustrated at it. I see the school system and how many screens are in the system with iPads and stuff, and I think, oh my gosh, we are literally changing brains.
That's correct. And that's what he's really worried about. He's really worried about that, because not just do we need to text, we can just ask Siri or whoever you've got on your phone to actually text for you.
Totally.
I mean, he's saying, where does this leave the next generations to come with their creativity? Because
totally,
that chat GPT also writes stories for you, write your essay.
I know.
Right. I mean, what's happening? And is there going to be are schools going to allow you to just use AI to do your tests? I don't know.
I was talking to a friend actually about that, because I'm curious, because I wasn't in uni or school in the AI times, obviously, and there are rules and regulations, but I thought, gosh, that's got to really take out the research aspect, the educational aspect. It's got to rob knowledge, and what are we doing? But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's where it's headed. And social media has done a lot of that. I'm not an anti-social media, of course, but I can see the damage that it's doing to society. And lots of my clients, in fact, majority of them are affected by it. This vortex of instant communication and just comparison and all that stuff.
Comparison is the worst one. I mean, I can recall many years ago, people putting their holidays up. And you never thought about it. I used to put my holidays up until one day I thought about it, and I thought, wait a minute, a lot of people wouldn't be able to go on this holiday. How are they going to feel when they see you having a great time? Is that a positive thing or a negative thing? Stopped doing that years ago. I didn't think it was a good thing to do. You tell your friends you're gone. You can show them photos when you come back if they want to see them.
That's so true. That reminds me, I recently went to Bali and I was putting up photos, and it was my first overseas holiday since having my son. And in the caption, I thought, I'm not going to write that, this highlight reel of, it was so amazing. And I'm going to say how it really was. And I said that, I'm a traveller, and I traveled for 10 years all over the world.
Wow.
My travel experience is never going to be the same as a mother, because even when your child's not with you, you're thinking about them.
That's right.
So you're bloody stuffed, like I was in Bali, and even when Sonny was with a nanny, I was like, is he okay? Is he okay? And I thought, oh my goodness, my life, now that I've moved into mother, is never going to be the same.
No. And even I've got two, one's nearly 30 and the other one's 33 this, next year, I think.
Hopefully they're not listening.
Oh, I'm pretty sure she will be. I still worry about them.
Of course.
Now.
Great.
Because it's a thing. It's just your maternal connection to them. They live their own lives and they do their own thing, but you're still there. You're still there. It's still a really strong connection there. And I think that'll be there till the day that you leave the planet,
For sure. I mean, your brain changes as a mother. It physically changes.
I know. I wasn't even maternal when I was pregnant with my first one.
Oh, gosh.
Not at all. I didn't even buy much. I just wasn't maternal. And the minute she was born, it was like someone had hit me over the head. And it was like my hand was on the little bassinet next to my bed. I wouldn't let anyone take her out of the room, and let alone I didn't want anyone to hold her either.
Yeah.
And it was like, this is mine.
It's crazy.
It's like a whole new persona takes over.
It does. And, I was saying...
It's a good thing to share,
Oh, for sure. And your whole nervous system changes, and obviously your nervous system's attached to your hormones and your brain, directly your brain. And so... I remember in the early days with my partner, all your senses increase. Your smell, your hearing, your fear, and that's that adrenal response when your baby cries is wild. It's such a wild thing.
It's panic.
Yeah, and feeling your biology change, and I remember that transition, because it is a transition from maiden to mother, and. Yeah, so going back to the holidays and social media, I thought, I'm going to put my holiday up, but I'm actually going to say how it is. And so, I agree with you. I think it's
beautiful.
important.
So you share the fact that you was not the same because you had a child.
No, and I will never be that gypsy-free traveller again. She's gone. She's been maiden. And part of a healthy transition is actually surrendering to the parts that you're leaving behind. And the biggest part for me was realizing that I will never travel and it will never feel the same. And it was such a grief. But also, sometimes it is what it is, and that's part of being a mum. And I think that if you resist against it, this is where I see a lot of mums having mental health issues, because they're trying to hold on to that maiden. And you just can't.
That is true. It really does affect some of the women.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I used to think, even when I was pregnant, I wasn't maternal. I used to say to my friends, as soon as I've had this baby, because she wasn't drinking, as soon as I've had this baby, we'll come over our place, we'll have a party. Never eventuated. That never ever happened. But still, and you won't get that life back. You won't get it back. But so when you're doing your counselling, what is that, all ages, or tell me a bit about that? Yeah,
so I do all ages, from children, because I'm a teacher.
You identify with them.
Yeah,
you're a real young person's.
Yeah, but then I love kids. I worked at in the kindy room at GEMS down here for years, years ago as well, like 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And I was a nanny as well when I was studying. So I have a connection to younger kids, but my degree's in high school. So I like working with kids and teens. I would say my passion is more helping people with parenthood, knowing and understanding children and teen psychology.
Yeah, that's important. That's really important.
So parenthood stuff. And I love working with couples. I just think that, to put two people together for life and, as you would definitely know, it's just hard. It can be so challenging and we need tools and techniques to navigate it. And so I love working with couples, individuals, and I love my whole brand is fast transformation. So I work very fast. I used to work in private and corporate organisations. And once again, being a system rebel, I recognise that some systems and some corporate and private, they try and keep people in the system to get the money. And I just was like not having a bar of that.
Wow.
It pissed me off. And so I was like, nah, I'm done. I'm leaving and I'm starting my own company and I want to see clients in and out as fast as I can. I don't want to see my clients again, because if I don't, then that means I've done a good job, And so, so my whole brand is fast transformation. So I may be going off on a tangent here, but with my clients, the aim of the game is to set them free of whatever they're going through and find the fastest path. And whether that's hypnotherapy or healing. I've also got a quantum device that scans people's cellular system and their DNA and looks at what's stored in their system at an energetic, electric level. So we look at generational trauma, ancestral trauma, karmic stuff.
Well, that's really interesting.
Yes, it is. It's a bit of a Joe Dispenza in a device, or Bruce Lipton, whatever.
Bruce Lipton.
Yeah. He's the original guy.
Is he really? I didn't know he developed something like that.
No, I mean like the intelligence of the device is along that.
Because it's the cells. The cells actually tell the story, isn't it? Because we started with one cell, now we're trillions of cells.
Yes.
But it's what our mind is telling us that determines on who we are.
Yes.
Our thoughts.
Yes.
So it always comes down right to what was your early life like?
For sure. Even in the womb, like I'll have
absolutely
some clients that in hypnosis will regress to the womb and, incredible. I had a client who, she was a twin and she lost the twin, but it was early stages of the pregnancy, but her body, her brain, because the brain develops quite early in the womb, but more so just holding that intelligence at a cellular level. She remembered, but she could feel the feeling of something leaving in the womb and her being like, what's happened? And so she was in her, I think, in her 60s. She had lived with this fear of change and she had no idea why. And it was crippling and caused so much anxiety for her. And she came to the session and in 90 minutes, she was free of it, because obviously what she was carrying through her life was an old, outdated message. And so once she realized that it was from the womb and when she lost her sibling, at about, I think it was about 4 to 5 months gestation, she was like, oh my gosh, that's just mind blowing.
See, you would never ever think that, would you? Because we think, oh well, you wouldn't know anything because you're not there yet.
Yeah.
But energetically we are.
Yes.
And our DNA comes back from thousands of years. It's travelled right through, and history, if you look through history, hasn't been we haven't got much to show for it as far as being kind to humans.
Yes.
So we've all had, slavery. You look at all the things, and I wonder if, I probably won't see, but I'm hoping that future generations that, that people will learn to accept one another and be kind to one another again, that you just don't see that. It's, people are frightened of other people.
Yes, yeah, I know. It's in some ways we're getting so much better. Like we're, of course, back in the day, things like acupuncture, frequency medicine, which was around in the 1800s. It's even in the Bible, hypnotherapy's in the Bible, things like that. It traces all the way back, that it was deemed quackery and just Rockefeller came.
Or you got burned at the
shut
stake.
down. You got burned as you're a witch. You're dead.
Yeah.
So it was all shut down, and now it's coming back, and it's really helpful to.
Well, there's a lot of that knowledge, right? And it's been taken away. And I guess to me, it feels like, well, why aren't we able to have that knowledge and be able to, because I think a human being's capable of a lot more than we think. We think we're limited, that we can only do this much because we were told this is all you can do.
Totally.
Right? So there's a lot more there, and it's not happening. Why can't we know that actually is more that we can do? And I've gone through things in my life that are unexplainable, and people would say, you got to be kidding, and you know, I've gone through amazing stuff which has been that super strength, or I shouldn't be here, or I should be in a wheelchair. You know, there's all these things that I've gone through and miraculously came through. And so if I can do it, you can do it. You know what I mean? There's that same thing. Joe Dispenza went through similar thing I did. Same thing. So I was not going to be walking anymore.
Yes,
same thing.
Right.
So, you know, and I end up walking.
Wow. It's incredible, isn't it?
It is. It's there. It's all there.
Yeah.
You know?
That's what my device is really helping people with, like finding these messages that are
subliminal. They're hidden.
Yeah, and causing so much pain. So, for example, I'll get clients that come to me. Often if they're in an emotional state, there's something that's physical that's presenting that's off. So it's almost like the body's showing an alarm. So whether that's insomnia, panic attacks, stomach aches, headaches, whatever, I know that it's emotionally related. Like there's got to be a contributing emotional factor. And so that's where my device helps me see what's happening at a cellular level very beautiful. Fast. Within like 30 seconds, it will come back with feedback. And then we unpack it in counselling. But a lot of people, I mean, Chinese medicine doctors and things like that, Louise Hay understands that the brain creates issues, you know, so held on anger throws your liver off.
Shame, guilt, abandonment.
Lungs, that's lungs. So
everything's connected in an incredibly powerful way.
Yeah.
And like you said before, you know, sound, because sound is we're all a frequency. We actually live on a frequency, and it depends on what type of frequency. It's like our auric field, or our radiant body, magnetic, electric body outside of ourselves, which they have been able to measure now. They couldn't before. Now they measure it. They know it, you know, it's there. You know, it's there's only two things that can do, and that is it can either protect or project. So you're either projecting a good feeling, which everyone feels because you're in that space, or you're strong enough within and love yourself enough to strengthen that outer field so that nothing negative can actually come into that field. Because auric fields can have holes in them, apparently. And I remember that when they first brought that photography out, that you could...
Oh, yes.
That was amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah, that's still going, you know, I think.
Yeah. I remember at all the spiritual fairs and all that, seeing that. Yeah, I think people, they understand like quantum physics. They understand that everything's, you know, a particle or an atom, and then you break that down to subatomic particles, and then you break that down further, and it's 99.9% energy, and therefore can be easily manipulated. People get that. They understand that. They're like, oh yeah, I can understand that. But what I think they get lost with is that emotions can be measured. So shame and helplessness is the lowest vibrating emotion within the cells, within the body, because remember, it's 99.9% nothing. And joy is the highest. And so if you embody joy, you're vibrating at that high frequency. Now, things like cancer or a cold, whatever, can only grow at a cellular level at a low vibrating frequency.
Bruce Lipton.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And Joe Dispenza. And so, anyway.
What's his book? His book, Biology of Belief.
The Biology of Belief.
Brilliant book.
Yeah, one of the best.
Your environment plays an extremely important part.
Exactly. And that's why some of my clients in hypnotherapy, because it's all stored in the subconscious treasure chest, they will go back to the womb.
Does hypnotherapy work all the time?
Yeah, does it work all the time?
On everybody?
Yes, the only people that find it the most challenging are people that have ADHD or something like that, because
they can't relax.
And so that, and if we look at the ADHD as a whole, part of the reason why people develop this at such a young age is that something's going on in their environment and they don't want to see it. They feel immense fear, so they distract their brain.
They're not safe.
They've got that message, I'm not safe, so they create hyperactive, very clever, distractive skills that help them at a young age, and then all of a sudden they've got ADHD. They can't concentrate and focus, but it's, there's an element of learnt behaviour there. And so when I hypnotise them, they're obviously I have to work a lot on their nervous system and calming them down. So I have had people...
That's challenging.
Yes. Because there's a lot of rapport that needs to be built, because ultimately you need to get someone who feels very unsafe to a position where they feel safe with a potential stranger. It's a big ask and leap. But yes, everyone can be hypnotized. It's a natural state of being. We actually go into hypnosis before we go to sleep. We're in hypnosis when we drive a car on autopilot. Or when we're in a trance in yoga or listening to a song. It's a natural state of being. I think the entertainment industry have taken the piss a bit, making you cluck like a chicken and things like that. Although, anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But it's,
I like that. I haven't heard of the cluck, cluck, cluck thing.
Oh, you haven't?
No,
oh my gosh.
Really?
Yeah, there's entertainment out there, hypnosis entertainment, where they make people do things that is just so bizarre. But, of course, hypnosis is a heightened state of control. People think they're going to be out of control.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
There used to be a guy on TV that used to do that. Turn people into monkeys and all sorts of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, and I often wonder whether that was put on.
Well, it can be done, but the person would have to accept it. So the person would have to accept that I want to cluck like a chicken or act like a monkey. Yeah. And then, of course, you can do anything,
But in a way, that could be good for them, couldn't it? Because they're going to do something they would never do normally, but they've got an excuse to actually be crazy.
Yeah, for sure. And,
that could be a release.
Right. It could. That inner monkey. We all have that inner hyperactive monkey. Yeah. But, the brain is phenomenal, and talking about past lives and things that you were saying before, like generations going back, I've had people in hypnosis who go back to past lives and start talking in a different accent and language, and it is just phenomenal. And, they come out of it and they're like, oh my gosh, that was the most incredible experience. I was that past life. I embodied that. And you remember everything.
So they remember it.
Yeah. Because all that hypnosis is doing is bypassing that logical, chatty prefrontal cortex mind that gets in the way of being able to access those very deep past events, memories and times.
Wow.
And so when you're in the subconscious mind and you're kind of looking around and you're, emotionally massaging the area and seeing what's coming up, you can, I don't get it often, but you can absolutely potential of going back to past lives. And I've had 2 that have in 5 years, so it's not common.
No.
But they came out of it and was like, one woman, one of her past lives regressions was standing at a window and her husband had gone to war or had left, and she's got these young kids at her feet and she's trying to, put the wood on the fire to light the stove to give them a shower, and she's she was very poor and had no money and trying to survive, and just... That's right. And that created a lot of her wealth blocks within her life, like why she feared money but wanted money but had this like fear of poverty and being alone. And interestingly enough, because she subconsciously brought that intelligence through from her past life about men leave you and you're left to pick up the pieces, her marriages were breaking down because she had this embodied fear, and that was an incredible session.
Yeah, that's really true. I've actually had 2 regressions of past lives, and they're both very similar. And I realised that my fear that I had was, I could see how that actually associated with past lives.
Amazing.
And there's it's a well-known fact that there's been even a child, for instance, I think he was only like 5 or something, turned around to his mother one day and said, you're not my mother. And she turned around and said, what do you mean? He says, no, I wasn't born here. I was born in, and he described this place in England, right?
I've heard this.
Yeah.
Yes, I've heard this.
And she took him to a psychologist and the psychologist got really interested.
That's right.
And actually went to this place in the UK and found out that this woman had given birth to this kid.
Yes.
At this time, died from, the little kid knew the whole thing.
Yes, I've heard this story.
That's amazing.
Yeah, amazing.
But it goes back to what you're talking about. It is real. It's an energy, and it's within each one of us. And in a way, we're all connected as well because.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and my business is this is why it's definitely the collective therapy, because whilst I can work very in the line of psychology and science and all that, I can also very much turn
the spiritual.
Yeah, and actually the most potent, powerful therapy, I believe, is when you combine both worlds
Absolutely,
together.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Because I think, people today don't trust anyone, right? And they think, if it's spiritual, it's religious.
Yes.
The difference between religion and spirituality, to me, is I don't find anything wrong with religion, especially if it makes people feel really good and happy. But religion is where you are dependent on something outside of yourself, and spirituality is when you actually take a responsibility for yourself. That's I take that as the difference in that. So it's I love combining both, because you can say to a person that's going, don't know about this, say, well, actually, scientifically, this is how this is connected to, and they go, oh, all right then.
Yeah. That's what I was saying about.
But they do marry. They marry beautifully, don't they?
They do, because, for example, like what I'm working with in a psychology space is, okay, let's look at your brain and your thought patterns, because ultimately all of us, our system is thought to feeling, feeling to behavior. And often people will come in saying, I feel anxious, or I've got panic attacks. So panic attacks are presenting on a physical level, a behavioural level, whereas, anxiety, which is a fancy word for fear, but society's been very clever at making basic emotions labelled with a label so we can medicate, etc. But whatever, that's a whole nother thing. So they'll identify with the feeling or the behavior, but actually what's driving that feeling and behavior is the thoughts. So we're looking at thoughts, right? And so in counseling, we're looking at a thought will start off as an attitude, a thought, and a thought will create an attitude towards something. You have lived out experiences that concrete those attitudes, which then become part of your belief system, and your beliefs drive your life, right?
That's right.
Issue is, wherever that attitude or that belief originates from and was created may be completely outdated. So, for example, a child might have an experience in their life where they very commonly, don't feel enough, or they don't feel lovable, or they feel different and like they can't connect, whatever it is. And that's very much their reality from 0 to whenever.
Like I'm unworthy.
Not worthy, yeah. And so they create this attitude, they go on to live their life, and, where thought goes, energy flows, of course. So if you already don't feel enough, you're going to attract into your life experiences that don't make you feel enough, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you've got those integral values and beliefs that I am not enough. And so there's that. So we're looking at the psychology side, like what thoughts are going on, how's it affecting your system. But then, of course, as I've learnt over the last 15 years, is that what contributes and what influences our attitudes and beliefs is far more than just the immediate physical event and experience. There is, like we're talking about, past life stuff, there is energetic stuff, there is so much more that contributes. And so with denying that aspect, you really are denying an element of transformation. And so if I am, if I honor my branding, so to speak, which is your in, your out, fast transformation, I must weave and fuse both worlds together, because I'd be doing a great disservice in not.
No, because you wouldn't, well, it just wouldn't make sense.
No. And people...
One on its own doesn't make sense.
Yeah, totally.
But you put them together and it all made, that's what I was very, very similar to you. I put them both together and then I thought, this is it.
Yeah.
In this, the potions of the entire thing, because you have to know a bit about biology and especially about our brain to understand why you are the way you are.
Absolutely.
It's a recognition, and once you understand, then you can use tools to move out of that, especially people with panic attacks and depression. But as Bruce Lipton would say, what sort of environment are they living in? Because sometimes it's just your environment alone that can create these issues.
Totally. And, if we say that anxiety is a fancy word for stored fear or fear, like people like, I'm so anxious, and they, they label themselves, I've got anxiety. And it's like, okay, let's take it back a step. You are anxious because of your symptoms. Okay, what are you feeling? I'm feeling fear. I'm having this experience of fear that's causing anxiety. It's like we're saying the same thing, like I said, anxiety is stored fear over time. And depression in my world is suppressed emotions over time that store and create a black cloud over your head, or the black dog, whatever you want to say. But it's like you're pulling these emotions that you haven't felt, you've got to feel to heal. And so it's been stored in the body and it's weighing you down at we could talk about so many layers and levels of that energetic level, but physical level. And so I just feel like people feel disempowered because I've got depression, I've got anxiety. Well, let's unpack that. Let's look at what you're actually saying. And a lot of people don't realize what anxiety actually is. And it's very basic. And this is why in counselling, I really strip it back to basics. Like I'm very black and white. Because then people actually feel empowered, like they have an influence over their own mental health. Whereas a lot of people will take drugs because they've been told it's a chemical imbalance.
Well, it's a quick fix.
Yeah, and the instant thing.
Yeah. But also the people, if I start saying to myself, I'm depressed, I'm going to be depressed.
Yeah.
We go back to that belief system that you're talking about as well,
Uh-huh.
And we all tend to label things, and it's so easy to, some people feel good about, I've got this.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, why do you feel good about you've got that, But it's really interesting, but and I say to them, I said, if you keep saying that, that's not going away, that's going to stay there.
I think that whole thing is about blame. Like it's easier to blame.
An outer thing.
Yeah. Like if you can't stand the pain, you'll shift the blame.
Yeah, it's always someone else's fault.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot. It's his fault, her fault. And I'm thinking, no. So if it's in a relationship, it takes two. It's never one.
Yes.
Never one.
Totally. And when I see, a classic is like, you get these big alpha males, and I'm being very stereotypical here, and they're shifting the blame, they're pointing, oh, my wife, this person, and they're covered in tattoos, which I just see as armor. They've got a huge beard covering their face, and I think, I'm looking at everything you're saying, I'm listening. No, I'm looking at everything you're doing, I'm listening to everything you're saying. And, they're blaming so much. I'm like, you have so much pain, because the degree of blame is to the depth of the pain. And so as soon as I start to talk to the pain, all of a sudden the beard starts quivering, and it's often about grandma or nana. And these
a lot of guys are really they shy away from these sort of therapies, don't they? Because it isn't masculine. And I'm quite surprised, even with the yoga that I do, that I've actually got males coming.
Yeah, brilliant.
Because that's something you don't really see, and I'm thinking that's quite interesting, and it does help, whether they tell anyone that they're going, I don't know.
Yeah, who cares?
It's very early in the morning, no one would see them.
No, that's right. I mean, totally. Yeah. I love working with alpha males. I used to fly out to mine sites, and that's an absolute cesspit for the alpha male, bless them.
It is.
And Yeah.
It's very entertaining, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you understand, get an understanding of
Yeah.
of the different personas.
Totally.
It's.
They should do yoga on mine sites. Wouldn't that be amazing?
I think some do. Some actually do,
Yeah. I think the big ones
but I
do.
think it's more gym, more muscle.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And isn't that just feeding the
Feeding the male thing, yeah.
masculine?
And sadly the males, do have a hard time because their emotions were shut down from a very early age, where because they were boys they weren't allowed to cry nor
terrible.
complain.
Yeah.
It was just dust yourself off and get on with it.
Awful. And
All repressed.
yeah, luckily this is the wheel that I see that's changing, that's turning, is
I'm seeing that.
parenting.
Yeah.
With my son and my partner, he came from quite an alpha, toxic masculinity, and we're generational changes, both of us. I'm changing the oppressed woman, the woman who does bloody everything, this 1960s stay-at-home mum.
Subliminal.
Yes.
What do you call it? Subservient.
Yes, subservient. I'm changing that within my lineage. And Jake, my partner, he's changing this, be tough. And
How fun that would be.
yeah, it's a
To
lot.
do that in a relationship.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and so my son, bless him, he's very affectionate and soft and emotional, and it's great,
Well, this makes a big generational change because your son's going to grow up with good values, isn't he?
Yes,
He's going to be completely different to your upbringing and to your partner's upbringing.
Yeah, and it's great. And there's a lot of healing in parenting the way that you wanted to be parented. I can see that particularly with Jake, my partner. Like, it's so freeing for him to be affectionate and soft and playful and with his son, because he's like, when you give to others what you wanted to give to yourself, that inner child really starts to heal, and it starts to loosen that tension and that angst that you've been holding on for so long. And I've seen Jake just like how fatherhood's brought that out, and
That's really good.
it can be very healing. And I'm seeing a lot of that with parenthood, is that, a lot of, almost weekly I'll get two very typical clients that want parenting help, because we only ever parent from our own experience. There's no real manual. Turn to page 5 when your kid goes off the rails.
Usually we do exactly what our mother did. That's the issue, because and what we do say, the things that we didn't like from our mother or our father, when we have a child, it's like, right, I'm not going to do this because I didn't like that. I'm going to give this child a much better life than, which also can be a downfall.
Yeah, overcompensate, totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because then you give, the child never learns how to appreciate. There's a lot involved in that scenario.
Oh, absolutely. So there's such a fine line, and we really have to understand that our children come through us. We don't own them, and it's not their role to fulfill an empty part within us.
That's correct. That's beautifully put. I like that.
And so
That's really nice, that, because it's true.
Yeah. And so whilst I can see you, Jake healing, we've also had conversations that that's not Sunny's role to heal your stuff. It's not Sunny's role to heal my generational subservient women stuff. He is just the catalyst of change, and how wonderful that he's come into our lives and through us, and we don't own him. He's got no job here, but he is
How old is he now?
2. He's only 2.
Oh, he's just turned 2, like not far away from my Sonny.
Yeah, I know. Yes, lots of
My
parallels.
Sonny's 2 in
our life.
November. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
A blessing, aren't they? I mean,
yeah, they are.
I wish my daughter was here.
Yes, I know. I'm so lucky to be close to my family.
Yeah.
That's why I moved from Denmark back to
You in
Dunsborough.
Denmark?
I was for
I love
4
Denmark.
years. Yeah, Jake, my partner, he's from Denmark, and I love it down there, except for the weather, slightly challenging, and just being away from my family who are in Dunsborough. So
Yeah, the other thing on your website, you mentioned Terry and Lynn on your website.
Yes.
Tell me more, because you're talking about collective, and I'm thinking, oh, this must be part of the collective.
Yeah.
So who's Terry and Lynn on your website?
So these people, my auntie and uncle, not through blood, but my parents' very good friends. One is a shaman. He has practiced a lot of shamanic work, and the other woman she identifies as like a witch. And
Oh, how interesting is that?
and they're in Scandinavia because they were drawn there because their ancestors
Drew
are
them
from there.
back.
Yep, back. And so I went to Sweden at one point, and I did my Reiki through Lynn actually, and it was insane to be on that Viking, land and feel all of that.
Yeah, I'd love to feel that. It's
yeah.
powerful, and
So
especially for women. Women were strong,
Yes.
so strong then.
Yes, totally. And Morgan, my name, I haven't changed my name, so yeah, my name is Welsh.
Yeah.
And I have Scandinavian roots, and I can feel, and Scottish, and I can feel that. So when I met Lynn and Terry, I was like, there's something here. And so yeah, I haven't worked with them for a while, but I used to work very closely with them, and they have a whole field of knowledge of all the shamanic stuff that they work with. So if a client gets to a point where they have, some hardcore past life stuff, I will often refer out to them.
So they do that online, do they?
Yeah, online.
Really?
Yeah. Lynn runs drumming circles in Sweden. They live in the middle of nowhere, and it's just stunning. And they do a lot of events. And Terry, he used to be an alpha male and all the things, and it's funny because he rides motorbikes and he's very masculine, but my goodness, the spiritual gift that he has and how he moves men. And so sometimes, like, I don't believe that I can fix every person I see.
No one can.
It takes a village, right? And so I have a lot of people that I refer to. So that's my like shamanic witch couple. And then I have a guy in India as well who...
Yeah, that's what was his name?
Shiva.
Sharma Shiva.
Yes, and he's brilliant. He is phenomenal. He has this gift that was passed from his granddad. He works mainly with women, and he grew up in the jungle and all the things, but he can see into people's chakras and which ones are out of balance, and he can actually tell you a date and a time of when and what the trauma is happening or whatever's stuck and looping in the system at an energetic level. He can feel it. And honestly, the experiences that I've had with him where he tells me dates and stuff is it'll just blow you out of the park. So,
and you remember some of those dates, do you? Like when or are they really like long lost dates? Like,
yeah, I remember before I had Sonny, like years ago, he'd say to me, your firstborn's going to be a son, and he said born close to you, like we're both in August, and I had forgotten that. This was like, would have been about 7 years ago he told me this. And then when I had Sonny, he was like, I told you it was in August. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, so things.
So you still keep in touch with all of them? How wonderful.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah. Oh,
well, obviously they made such a beautiful impact on your life. You don't want to lose contact because it's almost like family, isn't it?
Totally. And it takes a village to transform people's lives, and if I am true and honorable to my brand, which is fast in, fast out, I need more than just me,
Well, of course you do.
Yeah.
Like I've said to people, I say it all along, if there could be 10 yoga teachers and the person will go to each one of them and there'll be that one that they know they need to be there.
Yeah.
And I'm a very firm believer in that, and I don't even want people to come to my class unless they really want to be there.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Because the intention needs to be there for them to heal. I can give them tools, but the healing ultimately comes from them healing themselves.
Yeah, making that decision, that choice.
Yeah.
Totally. If you don't plant the seed, nothing will grow.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's fantastic.
Thank you.
And it's a shame that you're not going to be at the expo.
I know.
But maybe the following year.
Absolutely. I'm going to put it in my diary, and I'm going to...
Well, we don't know the date yet.
Oh, isn't it end of October?
No, it is, but it was the end of November last year and it was too hot, so we actually pulled it back.
Ah, I see.
So it's now October. It may stay in October.
Okay.
Depends, but... and it depends on... Because Cape's House has been great as allocating the space that's allocated for us there. which has been amazing. And of course, we need to make sure there's no weddings and things on, otherwise
Yes,
it
of course.
change of time.
Absolutely.
But thanks for coming on to this
My
podcast.
pleasure. Oh, I've loved
What
it.
a great talk.
Yeah, I love talking.
I mean, I could keep going because there's a lot more. We've actually got a lot in common here.
Yeah, we do.
So it's great.
Yeah, have to do part 2.
So thanks very much. And if you would like to get in touch.
Yes. Oh, here, I'll take it away here.
Yep.
So my Instagram is the Collective Therapy, and all the information is on there. And my website is www.thecollectivetherapy.com. So yeah, that's where you'll find me, and reach out. I have a free 20-minute discovery call, so we can just have a chat, see what's coming up for you, and have a chat about where we can go to from there. So no pressure to sign up either. But
What a great offer.
yeah,
That's a fantastic offer.
yeah, because like you said, some people might speak to me and be like, oh, she's not for me,
Yeah.
you know, and some people might go, oh, I connect, I feel
this.
I can feel this, because being a therapist is about the way that you make people feel. And so I'm very transparent at that connection. So they have to have the opportunity to connect before they book. Otherwise it's unethical, I believe. So yeah, we can just have a chat.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.